So you're here because you want to get right to the heart of things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Understand complex topics quickly.
exactly. Cut through the noise.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into something really significant for Muslims worldwide. It's Eid-e-Milad-Un-Nabi.
Right. And we've got some great material here. Our goal isn't just to define it, but to really explore why it matters so much, spiritually, culturally, why this commemoration of the Holy Prophet Muhammad's birth resonates so deeply.
And for anyone listening who maybe hasn't heard the term before, you might also hear it called Mawlid and Nabi, Eid-Milad, or just Milad-Un-Nabi. Basically, it celebrates the birth of Prophet Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon him. It falls on the 12th of Rabi'ul Awwal. That's the third month in the Islamic lunar calendar.
And that lunar calendar bit is important, right? Because it means the date shifts each year compared to the Gregorian calendar we mostly use day to day.
Exactly. But like you said, this isn't just about a date on the calendar. There's a whole lot of meaning packed in there that we want to unpack.
Definitely. Maybe we should start with the month itself, Rabi'ul Awwal.
Good idea. What's the significance there?
Well, the name itself, according to the sources, translates to the first spring.
The first spring. Okay.
Yeah. And for Muslims, that carries the symbolic weight, a feeling of joy, of hope starting to blossom. It's more than just a calendar designation.
That phrase really does reframe it, gives it a sense of, renewal.
Yeah.
But it's not only the prophet's birth that makes Rabiul Awwal stand out, is it? I think our sources mention some other key events.
That's right. Its importance isn't tied solely to the birth. The materials point out that the prophet's hijra, his migration to Medina, actually began in Rabiul Awwal.
Which was a huge turning point in Islamic history.
Absolutely massive. And also the construction of Masjid Quba, that's recognized as the very first mosque in Islam that happened in this month too.
Wow.
And even the first Jumu'ah, the first official Friday prayer, was held in Rabiul Awwal. So you've got this convergence of really foundational moments.
Okay, that definitely puts it in a different perspective. Not just one event, but a whole period soaked in the origins of the faith. All right, so with that context for the month, let's zoom in on Eid-Milad-Un-Nabi itself. What are Muslims celebrating specifically, and how does that look around the world?
So at its core, it's celebrating the birth of Prophet Muhammad, who Muslims believe is the final prophet. And the way it's marked globally, well, it's often very visible, very vibrant.
Oh, so?
You'll often see streets, mosques, shrines, even people's homes decorated. Lots of lights, banners, green flags often. It creates a really special festive atmosphere.
Sounds very communal, very outward. And the sources mentioned gatherings too, right? Not just decoration.
Oh, absolutely. Communal gatherings are central, often involve sharing food, sweets. It's about strengthening those community bonds.
Makes sense.
And alongside that, you have prayers, obviously.
Yeah.
But also poetry, recitations praising the prophet. These are called natas. And storytelling, sharing accounts of his life, his teachings.
So it engages like all the senses, the sights, the shared food, the sounds of prayer and poetry. What's the deeper aim, though, beyond the celebration itself?
The fundamental purpose, really, is to honor the prophet's character, to reflect on his life, and crucially, to reaffirm a commitment to the principles he taught. Things like love, peace, mercy, sacrifice, coexistence.
So it's an active thing, not just looking back.
Exactly. It's about taking his examples seriously and thinking about how to live those values today.
That makes sense. It's more than just remembering history. It's about its relevance now. Okay, so this tradition of celebrating his birthday, where did that start? How did it become what it is today?
That's a good question. The sources suggest the roots go back pretty early into the first few centuries of Islam. One interesting point mentioned is in the 8th century.
Yeah.
Khalifa Harun al-Rashid's mother, al-Qazuran, apparently converted the place where the prophet was born in Mecca into a prayer hall, a place for remembrance.
Huh. So like an early form of marking the significance of his birth, even if not a big festival yet?
Kind of, yeah. It seems it wasn't some sudden formalized thing right from the start. It grew more organically.
So how did it spread?
Well, the sources indicate that by the 11th century, the custom was established in Egypt. Then, by the 12th century, you see it observed in places like Turkey, Morocco, Syria, Spain.
Right, across the Muslim world?
Exactly. So, over centuries of this kind of adoption and growth, it evolved into the major religious festival that Muslims observe worldwide today.
It's fascinating how traditions develop over such long periods. So thinking about today, what role does Eid-Milad-Un-Nabi play for Muslims now? It seems like it does a few different things.
It really does. The sources highlight it as a key time to, yes, remember, but also to actively share the prophet's teachings.
How does that happen?
Well, Beyond prayers, people often listen to talks about the Prophet's seerah, his biography, to really understand his life, his decisions, his character, and charitable acts become even more emphasized.
Ah, right. Charity is always important, but maybe more so on this day.
It often gets a special focus, yeah, reflecting the Prophet's own emphasis on compassion and helping others.
And I think I saw something about parents and children specifically.
Yes, that's a really lovely aspect. It's often a time when parents make a point of telling stories about the Prophet's life to their kids, but specifically focusing on the values he stood for.
Like teaching those values through stories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It helps pass down that heritage and those ethics to the next generation.
It seems like a powerful way to connect generations. So if you look at all these activities, the prayers, the stories, the charity, the gatherings, what are the bigger goals? What's the overall aim?
The broader objectives, as described in our sources, seem to be about fostering community spirit, that sense of unity. Also, spreading the message of Islam, particularly the Prophet's example, and maybe most importantly, serving as a reminder for Muslims themselves to really try and follow that example in their own lives.
Okay, so it's personal reflection, community building, and a kind of gentle outreach, all rolled into one. Let's talk about the specific religious side for a moment. On the 12th of Rabi'ul Awwal itself, what are the key devotional practices?
Right, so special prayers are often held in mosques. That's pretty standard for important Islamic days. But a really central practice for Milad-Un-Nabi is reciting salawat.
The salawat.
Yes, it means sending blessings and peace upon Prophet Muhammad, reciting specific phrases often repeatedly. It's an act of love and reverence, deeply rooted in Islamic practice.
So lots of verbal devotion. Is there more to it?
Definitely. Reciting the Quran is also key, of course. And as we mentioned, engaging in charitable deeds. There's even a verse in the Quran that's often cited in this context from Surah Al-Nabi.
Which one is that?
Verse 56. It essentially says, Allah and his angels bless the Prophet. Believers invoke blessings and peace on him. So it directly encourages this practice.
That verse really anchors the importance of sending blessings, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so for someone listening who wants to observe Eid-Milad-Un-Nabi meaningfully, what are the recommended ways? What do our sources suggest?
The core advice seems to be, align your actions with the Prophet's teachings. So, reciting Darud Sharif specific blessings is highly recommended.
Like the salawat you mentioned.
Exactly, specific forms of it. Also, learning about and reflecting on his sunnah, his way of life, his traditions, and as always, reading the Quran and consciously doing good deeds are seen as the most authentic ways to mark the day.
Those sound quite personal, quite focused on individual practice. What about the more visible communal aspects we talked about earlier?
Oh, they're definitely part of it too. Decorating homes and mosques is common, a way to show joy and reverence publicly. And giving charity, as we said, is huge. It really embodies those Islamic values of generosity and looking out for the community, values the Prophet championed constantly.
Right. So it's a kind of balance, isn't it? Inner devotion and outward expression of faith and community spirit.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay. As we start to wrap up this deep dive on Eid-Milad-Un-Nabi, what's the main thing you think our listeners should take away? What's the essence of it all?
I think the crucial point is that Eid-el-Milad-Un-Nabi is much more than just remembering a birthday.
Right.
It's fundamentally, as our sources emphasize, a reaffirmation of the principles Prophet Muhammad lived by. It's a time for Muslims to feel united, to reflect deeply on their faith, and really to renew their commitment to living according to his teachings, peace be upon him.
A powerful summary. Reflection, recommitment, unity, all centered on his legacy.
Precisely. And by observing the day with genuine devotion through prayer, through learning, through acts of kindness, Muslims feel they're not just honoring his memory, but actively trying to embody the values he represented.
So for everyone listening today, we've journeyed through Eid-e-Milad-Un-Nabi, looked at its history, how it's celebrated globally in diverse ways, and tried to understand that core message, unity and commitment to the Prophet Muhammad's teachings.
Yeah, and maybe a final thought to leave people with. Consider how those values we talked about, love, peace, mercy, sacrifice, coexistence, resonate beyond just this specific celebration.
How so?
Well, these are arguably universal values, right? Think about how principles championed by influential figures throughout history continue to shape societies everywhere. It doesn't matter what your background is. It's maybe a chance to reflect personally on the impact figures like the Prophet Muhammad have had and what their teachings might mean for us today.